Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Making fun of my disabilities, prepare for some sweet revenge. So this story starts when I was around 10 years old. I was in primary school, which for those who don't know is like the years before going into high school/middle, and it's basically just the years that prepare you for what the harder next couple of years will be like. Now on to the bullying. I was at this school for most of primary school life. I later changed schools, but we will talk about that later. I was born with a couple of disabilities. These were high-functioning autism, severe ADHD, and horrible anxiety, plus another few I won't mention. In short, growing up wasn't easy for me, and I kind of did things differently. This is where it all starts. I go to an all-boys school, pretty expensive, and we could barely afford to send me, but my parents really wanted me to do as well as I could. This means I was surrounded by a bunch of entitled kids who were really given everything they wanted within a second of asking. One entitled kid, which we will call TJ, was one of the first people to realize I was different, and he immediately took advantage of it. Now TJ had this little group of friends which I guess owned the grade. They made my life miserable. I got called relentless names, I was teased, had my food thrown around, and even at a point was beaten up behind the school toilets. Every day they tormented me and I always came home sad and just, well, depressed. They had truly made me feel worthless and had also completely shattered my self-confidence. But that all changed on one very special day. It was a normal school day, the boys had seen me and had dealt out their daily abuse, and I was feeling once again horrible. My food had been thrown out of my bag and all the stuff that usually happened, well, happened. But the reason this day was so special was because it was a day that I had one of my best ideas I've ever had. I just recently got a new iPod from my parents, and this iPod came with a voice recorder. You may be able to tell where this is going. My idea was to turn on my voice recorder and pop it into my pocket and record what the boys said to me. And well, it went extremely well. Due to the bullying lasting around 3 years at the current time, I was 13 now, I knew where the boys usually hung out. So with a burst of bravery that came out of nowhere, I walked straight into their friend group and, well, I think you can guess what happened. After recording their verbal abuse, I took that recording straight to the headmaster's office. The good thing about my headmaster was that he actually understood me and helped me in my times of need. I always went to him when I was being bullied, and he did everything he could with the power he had, which was not much as there was really nothing he could do except tell them off due to no evidence. I ran into his office and without even saying anything started playing the voice recorder. Due to the evidence I had collected, the headmaster had the ability to serve out some real punishments. The recording was sent to the boys' parents, who must have been startled that their boy, who they had sent to a very expensive school, was not the golden image they thought they were. The boys were suspended and I had some peace. Eventually, my parents decided that it would be best for both financial reasons for them and mental reasons for me to move schools. I'm currently 16, studying a high-level medicine course in the hope of becoming an anesthetist. I've got a good group of friends who I'm so thankful for, and to be honest, I couldn't be any happier. P.S. I recently found out TJ, the one I mentioned earlier, could be potentially going to juvenile for potential theft and destruction of property. So yeah, I'm happy I'm no longer connected to him in any way, shape or form. I just wanted to add that you should be who you are. Do things that make you happy, and anyone who tries to bring you down can piss off. Be you. Trust me, it's amazing. Next story. Want to bully me for my disability? Have fun getting suspended for littering. I got very sick with what we now know is a life-threatening illness when I was 12. I was never great at making friends due to family issues, and so I had a small gathering of friends who I did not realize weren't really my friends and just kept me around to poke fun at me. Because I was so ill and doctors were trying to figure out why, I missed a lot of school, and at first doctors did not think I'd pull through. But after missing a decent amount of school, I got a bit more stable and began being tutored from home to make up for the work I missed. I worked hard so I could move into the next grade with all my friends, and it paid off. I made it. But when I was doing well enough to be able to go to school for a couple days a week, I realized one of my so-called friends had begun really tearing into my reputation at school hard. This girl, let's call her Sarah, told everyone I was out because I was pregnant and had a contagious disease. Everyone in school was laughing and making fun of me. I was being called horrible things, and she even told me to kill myself. I was only 13 for God's sake. And it was very hard emotionally and physically for me to deal with all of this, especially after she began physically bullying me as well. When I told the school, they brought her in and we spoke together. It just made it worse. They started brushing off when I'd come in and tell me she was getting worse, causing me to be more depressed than before. After months of dealing with this all, I heard about our annual class field trip. It was a glammed up version of camping, heated cabins, carnival rides and equipment, a lake for boating and even horse stables. It was a talk of the year and everyone was going. It took weeks of begging my parents for them to agree I could go. The conditions were that I had to have the school nurse as my chaperone, and I could only stay one night, whereas everyone else stayed 2 nights and 3 days. I was so excited to finally be able to do something normal that did not involve hospitals and tests and treatments. Everyone in school chose their groups quickly. My friend group filled their cabin, so Sarah and I were the odd ones out. We got placed in a cabin with a bunch of other girls who were also extras in their friend groups. I absolutely dreaded being in a cabin with her, but I did my best to enjoy my day at the camp before having to get into the cabin at night. Most of the girls were eating and sitting in front of the fireplace joking around, along with Sarah. Everyone was complaining about how this large group of popular girls got the boat cabin. The boat cabin was the best cabin, the only one with 2 stories and overlooking the lake. They had better beds, more room, a full kitchen, more showers, and a balcony. These popular girls had convinced the principal via their parents to let them stay there. Everyone was jealous. Right then and there I formed my revenge plan on Sarah. I began to tell the other girls that we should totally prank those boat cabin girls. They all eagerly listened as I told them to grab rolls of toilet paper, baby soap 1 had brought for showering, and toothpaste. Sitting in front of this all, I told them that only one person should go so no one would see. Everyone fought over who got to be the one to go and stick it to those boat cabin girls. Seeing as it was my idea, I suggested Sarah go. I hyped her up, telling her she was the fastest in a gym class and she'd be done quickly and quietly. And the girls nodded in agreement. After waiting until it was early in the morning around 2 a.m., we opened a window and sent Sarah on her way to the cabin with the supplies. She came back 30 minutes later. She posted to everyone how it was her idea first and how she did it. She took credit for it, making it even better. They all played music and celebrated our accomplishment before going to bed. The next morning, the boat cabin girls were pissed. I have to give it to Sarah. She did an amazing job. I rushed to the boat cabin before my parents came to see what she had done. The entire place was coated in damp, mushy toilet paper. It had rained a bit overnight and the toilet paper was stuck on the roof and deck. It couldn't easily be taken off. It was going to have to be scraped off. Some had flitted into some bushes and on the lakeside before it had rained, where it now sat in piles of mush. The door to the cabin had been unlocked, so on top of putting some toothpaste all over the porch, she had put some baby oil on all the doorknobs and floor inside. She put toothpaste on the girls' pillows as they slept so they would roll into it. The girls from the cabin were livid. They all had to shower that morning to get the toothpaste out of their hair, some in cold water. Most had fallen upon getting out of bed thanks to the baby soap on the tiled floor. They had to clean the mess inside before even realizing the mess outside. Sarah was boasting about it, telling everyone from other cabins how she pranked those girls. People all sat in front of her as she told the story of how she did it all, and I knew what was coming. I left early. My parents came to pick me up and I got in a car and left, sadly missing out on what would happen next. Before I left, I mentioned to a teacher that Sarah had done something bad the night before and that she wouldn't listen to me when I told her to stay in the cabin. The next week in school, I heard Sarah got suspended. The camp owners were pissed and originally blamed the Poke cabin for the mess before finding out it was Sarah. They forced her to clean the wet toilet paper and wash the floors and doorknobs. She cried the whole time and ended up getting suspended after the camp owners claimed she littered and caused chaos. Sarah tried to tell the school it was my fault, but they had never had an issue with me before, so it was a bit unbelievable. Plus, she had already told everyone she did it. The girls in my cabin that night kept their mouths shut about it being my idea. Whether they just forgot, weren't believed, didn't have to be involved, or did not care, I don't know. But I was off the hook. Sarah called me angrily and I told her I was done being bullied by her. Had she just left me alone, I never would have done all this. There were times I felt bad about it all. But after the school, I did nothing to help when I was being picked on so severely. In my opinion, we were even. Next story. She kept her receipts and got the vice principal removed from his job. For the sole purpose of not getting you guys confused, you need to know that this is one of the very rare stories out there that has a Karen in it, but she's not the villain by any means. Enjoy. My best friend Karen is a first grade teacher, and as soon as she told me the story, it gave me such a sense of justice that I knew I had to retell it here. 2 years ago, Karen had a student named Xavier. Sweet little 6-year-old boy when things were good, but his parents had just gotten divorced and his mom wasn't that great even before she was out of the picture. And his dad was quite disengaged from both his son's behavior and his IEP, Individualized Education Plan. Rather understandably, Xavier acted out in class. He'd refused to listen to Karen push other kids and disrupt class in more ways than I could possibly list. Now Karen worked hard with Xavier to improve his behavior and get his dad more involved in a positive way. She'd often call me and talk about it to decompress because that's what friends were for. But occasionally Xavier went too far and did something she couldn't just deal with in class, like trying to stab another student in the hand with a pencil. On those occasions, she wrote him up with a referral and sent him to the vice principal. But surprise, surprise, the vice principal was absolutely no help whatsoever. He'd joke around with Xavier, refused to address the problem Karen sent Xavier there for, give him candy and then lecture Karen for writing up a 6-year-old for any reason because it reflected badly on the vice principal. I'm pretty sure this has to do with the nonsense known as merit pay, but whatever. Unfortunately, his actions made it significantly harder for Karen to help Xavier. To top it all off, Karen figured out after a few referrals that the vice principal logged into the system and erased each of Xavier's referrals, thus erasing all the evidence of Xavier's pattern of behavior. In a word, this is bad. I know nothing about education, but I still know that much at least. My brother was a holy terror in elementary school and got in so much trouble from 3rd to 6th grades that both the principal and vice principal were on a first-name basis with my mom. Those records sure did not disappear. Not in a shredder, and certainly not in a digital ether. She reported this to her higher-ups, who weren't vice principal, but they both told him about the complaint and specified that Karen was the one making the complaint. The vice principal was cold and rude to her after that. Nothing was done about it because it seemed to be a one-time thing. But now Karen knew what to do. Every time she had to write Xavier up again, which placidly because less often as the year went on, she meticulously documented everything herself, sent herself all the relevant stuff and saved the emails and the whole shebang. By the end of the year, Xavier's behavior had greatly improved thanks to her monitoring and the various ways she learned how to engage with him in the classroom. She even talked to his 2nd grade teacher to make sure the woman knew how to work with Xavier. God, Karen went above and beyond for this child. Partway through the next school year, the higher-ups come talk to Karen again, even though nothing was done about her complaint the previous year. A record has been made of it. As it turns out, another teacher had reported vice principal for doing the exact same thing to her as he's done to Karen. If she had anything related to her own ordeal, they wanted to see it. And oh boy did she. She gave them every single detail receipt she'd accumulated for the better part of a school year to compare with the vice principals, establishing a pattern of him undermining teachers via erasing students' patterns of behavior. Vice principal was quickly removed from his position as a vice principal of Karen's school, even though he wasn't technically fired. He was just moved to a different school and put in a much lesser position, and he was paid significantly less than before. Bonus: he taught history at Karen in my high school while we attended it and everyone loved him. I looked forward to telling this whole story at our reunion because we sure do not like him now.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.